Imagine being pulled into a slender 30-inch diameter pipeline, caught in a swirling tornado of water that plunges you into an abyss of darkness, where movement is restricted and visibility is non-existent. To add to the challenge, the pipe is filled with oil, claiming most of the space and leaving only a tight squeeze for breathing. Time is slipping away swiftly before you suffocate in this ominous claustrophobic pipe. Here at the Faculty of Truth, we will delve into the Paria Diving disaster, involving 5 divers who never fully grasped what happened to them. Suddenly they emerged in the middle of an oil pipe. Out of the 5 men, only one survived and shared the harrowing story. A GoPro video camera affixed to a diver's suit documented both video and audio of the events that unfolded on February 25, 2022. Initially, it started as an ordinary workday for the LMCS diving team in Pointe-à-Pierre. Their task was routine maintenance on a pipeline for Paria Fuel, a government-owned oil company in Trinidad and Tobago. For professional divers Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Fizal Kurban, Rishi Nagasar, and Christopher Boudram, it was just another typical day on the job. They were tasked with working on a segment of pipe that was currently inactive. A U-shaped pipeline situated between the location where an oil tanker would dock to unload its oil, known as Berth 5, and the spot where the oil enters the refinery, referred to as Berth 6. To carry out their daily tasks, they needed to disconnect the pipe from the surrounding ocean water to access the areas requiring repair. To achieve this, they installed a specialized hyperbaric chamber over the pipe's top. This system facilitated the displacement of water, creating a dry environment for their work. The chamber, an 8-foot by 8-foot cube structure, was positioned over the upper section of the pipe. After introducing air to expel the water, the men could stand on the ledge within the hyperbaric chamber. This setup enabled them to remove their diving gear and safely utilize tools, collaborating on intricate repairs and maneuvers. One of their tasks involved removing an inflatable plug at Berth 6, inserted nearly 2 weeks prior to safeguard the oil contents of the pipe and prevent hydrocarbons from escaping. This plug served as an airtight barrier against the pressure from the habitat chamber. The plug required a wrench for its valve to be loosened. Kazim Ali handed the wrench to the 4 men working around the pipe before pulling himself onto the ledge to shed his diving equipment. Upon opening the valve, an abrupt force overwhelmed the group. Water surged into the habitat and down the pipe, creating a sudden torrent that pulled the men and all their equipment into a swirling pipeline vortex. The event was so unexpected that they struggled to comprehend what was happening. Despite the unfortunate circumstances, luck was on their side, as they miraculously settled in a spot with an air pocket for breathing. The GoPro video captured moments just before their descent into the water vortex, plunging everything into darkness amid the sound of rustling and movement. It is startling to hear them communicate within the pipe, an environment expected to be filled with crude oil. The cruel irony lies in the fact that the very air sustaining their breath is the exact air sucked into the oil from chamber together with all 5 men. But how did this happen? The inflatable plug they were removing was designed to separate 1,200 barrels of oil from the surrounding air and ocean water. Under normal circumstances, removing the plug and proceeding with their work plan would have been routine. The air pressure in the habitat would press down and perform the plug's function, maintaining the balance between the 2 ends of Berth 5 and Berth 6, nothing out of the ordinary. Unfortunately, they were unaware that there was an air void inside the pipe that became trapped during the oil filling process from the tanker at Berth 5. As soon as the plug deflated, the high-pressure air from the chamber rushed down the pipe to fill out the void with such force that it pulled the men, along with their tools and scuba tanks, into the 30-inch pipeline. The sudden release of habitat pressure caused ocean water to violently surge inside, creating a wild swirl of air, ocean water, and tools as 5 men fought for breath. After what must have felt like an eternity, the swirling subsided, and they found themselves in a pocket of air. Chris Boudram, the lone survivor, vividly described the unthinkable moment of being sucked into an oil pipeline at an incredible speed.
Within a second, it was like tornado, everything just spinning and beating you up, and it happened so fast, you couldn't react. The only thing I remember able to do was cover my head, like in the fetal position. After that, all I remember, I didn't even remember actually getting pulled in the pipe. I just remember going hurled through the pipe at unbelievable speeds. It feel like if when you're driving a car and you're doing 100 or 120 on the highway, you feel like if you're going through that kind of speed. Every time I try to stop myself jamming the walls of the pipe, I feel my hands burning through the wetsuit. While going down it, I feel a little debris hitting you.
Finally, after the inner pressure stabilized, the men were completely disoriented, with no idea of how far they had traveled down the 1,200-foot-long section, equivalent to the length of 4 Statue of Liberty sculptures in a row. The pipe featured undulations at weld seams and support placements, creating variations in elevation that allowed air pockets to form. Once they regained their bearings, it became clear that they were all battered, but luckily alive. They quickly assessed their surroundings, checked on each other's well-being, and confirmed that all 5 were present. Shouting back and forth, they affirmed their shared presence inside the pipe, a reality that was both unbelievable and grim. Trying to grasp their location within the pipeline proved more challenging than expected. Amid the disorientation, there was disagreement about which direction would lead them back to berth 6. After some discussion, they decided to act together and crawl as a group toward one of the ends. They had to deal with a pipe that was coated in a thick, slippery oil sludge, making it exhausting to fight against the oil, barely making progress while dealing with broken bones, battered organs, and oil in their eyes and nostrils, all within the encompassing darkness. After an hour of intense struggle, they faced an unexpected challenge. The seawater level was on the rise. Despite their efforts to keep their heads above water, the leader at the front realized his face was now just 6 inches from the top of the pipe. It became clear that continuing in this manner was no longer feasible, especially with some of the men seriously injured and unable to move for much longer. In the lead were Chris Boudram and Kazim Ali, with Yusuf, Faisal, and Rishi following in the pipe. A collective decision was made, and Chris and Kazim, as the first 2 in line, would attempt to hold their breath and venture to discover another pocket of air. With determination, they assured the rest of the group that they would do their utmost to escape and return with help for everyone. The stakes were high, and the promise of a potential rescue added a glimmer of hope to their dire situation. The 2 men strained to keep their heads above the water for as long as they could. With a deep breath, they submerged, determined to find a fresh pocket of air ahead. Their perseverance paid off, leading them to a second air pocket near the riser pipe, an enticing path to potential freedom. A surge of joy swept over them as they discovered 2 scuba tanks in this section, feeling like the key to their escape. Despite almost depleting both oxygen bottles while navigating the next section, the progress was hindered by Kazim's worsening injuries. In a unanimous decision, they agreed that Chris should take the remaining oxygen and swim toward the end of the pipe. With the tank positioned in front of his body, he pushed it along while maneuvering through a narrow 30-inch tube. Upon reaching curvature towards the riser end of the pipe, a chilling thought struck Chris. What if this was berth 5 and not berth 6? The prospect of swimming up nearly 55 feet and running into an inflated plug blocking pipe, leaving him with no air, especially with his tank nearly empty. After grappling with the decision, he made the bold choice to push off the bottom, propelling himself upward towards the surface. Chris, having spent over 2 hours in the confining pipe, experienced a flood of relief as he finally reached the top of the oily water at berth 6. Frantically, he banged and screamed, desperately trying to catch the attention of the ship team. A breakthrough came when one of the searchers located him and facilitated his climb using a chain. Overwhelmed and exhausted, Chris urgently communicated that there were air pockets in the line, and miraculously, all the men were still alive. After informing rescuers about the presence of air and the injuries they sustained, he was swiftly taken to the hospital. Up until this point, the other members of LMCS were grappling with uncertainty about the survival of the men. They had presumed the pipe was filled with oil, leading to the belief that the men would have drowned within minutes, considering that oxygen tanks typically last up to an hour each. The fact that more than 2 hours had passed since the men were pulled into the pipeline heightened their skepticism. With the situation clarified by Chris, divers in the water tapped on the pipe in various locations, receiving responsive taps from inside. The trapped men must have experienced overwhelming relief, knowing that someone was aware of their presence. They eagerly anticipated the arrival of professional divers and various equipment on the ship above them. Oxygen tanks, ropes, lights, and assistance. Hour after hour they waited, hopeful for a glimpse of light or the metallic clang of descending oxygen tanks. Yet, to their dismay, they saw only darkness and heard only silence. As they grappled with the injuries from the initial flush, the men found themselves wrestling not only with physical pain, but also with the challenge of breathing the acrid, oily air. With each passing hour, the carbon dioxide content in their limited air supply rose, intensifying the struggle to breathe. And so, they waited. Amidst the grim reality of the non-rescue debacle, these men, just a few hundred feet from salvation, faced a heart-wrenching truth. No help arrived. They endured pain, knocked for attention, and desperately tried to move towards the exit. The crushing realization dawned after days trapped in the oily pipe. No one was coming to their rescue. The actions taken by LMCS, Paria Fuel, Heritage, their sister company, and the Coast Guard became subjects of heated debate. Claims surfaced that Paria prevented rescue divers from entering the pipe to save the men, arguing that there was no viable plan to extract them without risking more lives. Some believed the men were presumed dead, and the knocking was attributed to something else. The Coast Guard, LMCS, and family members, including professional divers, each held their own version of events. Undeniable facts revealed that 4 men were alive at 5 o'clock the same day when Christopher Boudram was rescued. Witnesses attested to hearing banging on the pipes from inside for nearly 2 days before it abruptly ceased. Following the recovery of the bodies, 2 autopsies were conducted. Despite discrepancies in the autopsy reports regarding the time of death, it was clear that all the men lived until various times on Saturday, and some even seemed to have survived until Monday. The circumstances leading to their demise, whether succumbing to injuries, running out of breathable air, or drowning while attempting to swim to a pipe exit, remained shrouded in uncertainty. A commission of inquiry was established in Trinidad and Tobago that delivered their final report to President Christine Kangaloo on November 30th.
I'm trying to come up. Chris, General. Chris. Yeah. Right behind you, man. All right behind you? You're right behind me? Yeah. You don't know when you're to come up? It's not a problem. Who making all that noise? Come on, all I mean, let's figure it out. We gotta go. We gotta start moving. Yeah. Where you at? I don't know. I'm trying to come up. What's happening? Trying to come up. Don't worry, all is good. All is good. I'm trying to come out. Huh? Who is that boy there? Yusuf? Oh, Yusuf? How long you have to walk before you meet Spicy? You and Spicy was together all the time?
Right now, we are fighting. Right now.
Who else with you?
We are fighting alone.
Can't with you?
Right there.
Right there with? Can't everything alright with you?
No.
Any limbs break?
All legs break.
Your leg, alright. Five. Anything happen to you?
Yeah.
A five?
No way.
Yusuf, anything happen to you?
Yeah, boy.
What happened?
Come on, break.
Alright. Alright.